If you found a gravestone with your name carved into cold marble, and the date of death was next week, would you call it a mistake or a warning? She tried to laugh it off, convincing herself it was some twisted prank, until the candlelight of the cemetery flickered like a heartbeat, illuminating the exact time her life was meant to end. 7 a.m. 7 nights left, 7 reasons to stay alive, 7 signs that something beyond this world was already counting down. The first proof something was wrong came quietly. Her name vanished from her work badge. Her reflection hesitated in the mirror. Her mother paused to ask, "Do we know each other?" Day by day, the world seemed to erase her existence, paper by paper, memory by memory, like she was a prayer slowly fading from God's mind. And at the center of it all, the grave, her grave, waiting. When the phone rang at midnight, she answered with trembling breath. A calm voice whispered her full name, followed by a blessing for her soul. He prayed as if she were already gone, as if he had buried her himself. Then he said a final sentence that froze the truth in her veins. "What was forgotten must be paid, daughter. And heaven always collects on time." Now she has 7 days to remember the sin she never confessed, before the earth closes over her while she's still breathing. She never believed in omens until the earth carved her expiration date. The air that morning smelled of wet stone and old prayers as she walked through the cemetery with a bouquet of white lilies pressed against her chest. She came to honor someone else's memory, but instead she found the future death of her own. Her name, her birth date, the same slight curve of letters she'd practiced since childhood, and beneath it, the date that should have terrified her, but instead stole her breath with a cold curiosity. December 12th, 7 days from now. Time marked with surgical precision, 0:07 a.m. Her heartbeat thundered as she reached out, fingertips grazing the smooth stone. The moment she touched it, a chill coiled through her like a warning whispered by the soil itself. It was as if the ground remembered something she had forgotten, something that now demanded to be paid. At home, she tried to journal her thoughts, a habit she used to calm her mind. But the pen moved as if guided by a memory not her own, writing a single cryptic line, "Heaven collects only what was borrowed." She stared at the sentence, pulse racing. She didn't write that. She would remember writing something like that. Night fell early. Wind rattled the windows like restless knuckles. When her phone rang at midnight again, that same calm voice prayed for her soul. He spoke as if her transformation had already begun, as if she were no longer fully alive. And with every second ticking closer to her foretold time of death, she felt the world subtly pushing her into silence, like a life being erased line by line. Before we go deeper, subscribe and comment. Would you want to know the date of your final day? Because for her, the countdown has already begun. She woke up before sunrise, heart racing, the echo of a bell lingering in her ears. At first she thought it was the alarm she forgot to set. But the room was silent, except for the faint rattle of the window as cold wind brushed against the glass. Her breath appeared in the air like ghostly smoke, though the heater was on. Something was different. Something in the atmosphere insisted that the countdown was real, even if her rational mind begged to disagree. She pushed the thought away, trying to anchor herself. Coffee, warm shower, journaling, habits that once brought emotional clarity. But the moment she opened her notebook, the page already had handwriting on it. Her handwriting, undeniably. 4 new words. Day 1. Begin remembering. She slammed the notebook shut, refusing to entertain the idea that she might have written those words subconsciously. Stress can play with memory. Anxiety can twist reality. That was the answer she clung to. She needed to go to work. Routine, logic, light. A world where gravestones don't whisper your future. But as she walked outside, the world held a strange weight, like the sky hadn't fully brightened on purpose. The rising sun looked pale, dim, as if the day itself feared to reveal what it knew about her fate. On the bus, she caught her reflection in the window. Not a trick of glass or motion, her reflection lagged, a second too slow, as if the woman looking back was hesitating, unsure, or separate. She blinked hard, looked again. Now it was normal. A nervous laugh escaped her lips. "Get it together," she murmured. A man sitting nearby glanced at her, then quickly looked away, as though he wasn't sure she was real enough to look at for too long. At work, the security gate beeped red when she scanned her badge. The guard frowned. "This ID doesn't exist in the system." She insisted it must be a glitch. He typed her name. The blank screen looked like a verdict. "Maybe you're new?" he asked gently. She had been there for 6 years. She almost corrected him with a frustrated tone, but the uncertainty in his eyes wasn't annoyance. It was confusion, fear, as though his mind struggled to attach a memory to her face. She backed away slowly, pretending to check something on her phone. No photos of her with co-workers, no appointments with her name attached, her digital presence thinning like fog under sunlight. She sat outside on a bench, forcing slow breaths. She needed purpose, something to hold on to. She opened her notes app to plan her day, and every plan she'd ever written was gone. Not deleted, just never created. The version of her life stored in the world's memory was shrinking. And the date on the gravestone, December 12th, 007 a.m., felt less like a prediction and more like a scheduled erasure. The wind lifted a discarded newspaper page, pushing it across her feet. She picked it up. Her eyes scanned the obituary section without knowing why. She froze. Her own photo stared back. Same soft smile, same silver necklace, same woman. The text beneath read, "Survived by those who loved her deeply, she left with peace in her heart." No name was written, as if even the paper was uncertain who she was supposed to be. Her phone buzzed. A message. Church of St. Bridget, noon. No sender, no number. But she felt her pulse skip as she remembered the stone, the prayer in her journal, the midnight blessing from that calm, knowing voice. She didn't want to go. Yet something like gravitational pull tugged her in that direction. An invisible thread woven into divine timing. Transformation, she thought. Maybe this is all pushing me into a breakthrough. A strange spark of faith flickered, then vanished under fear's shadow. Outside the church, the sky dimmed again, clouds rolling like restless spirits. The heavy wooden doors groaned open the moment she reached for the handle. No one was there to open them. Inside, candles flickered, though no one had lit them. The scent of frankincense wrapped around her, both comforting and suffocating. A soft whisper of hymns without voices filled the air, as if walls remembered songs, even when choirs fell silent. She stepped into the center aisle, drawn toward the altar. Her steps echoed like someone else walked alongside her, a half-second behind. The stained glass windows painted the floor with fractured colors, red like blood, gold like salvation, blue like unanswered prayers. The weight of something unseen pressed on her shoulders, a presence, expectant. A priest appeared from the shadows near the confessional. His cassock moved with a wind that did not exist. His eyes, grey like ash, regarded her without surprise. "You came earlier than expected," he said, voice gentle, almost proud. She swallowed hard. "You're the one who called me?" "No, daughter," he replied. "I called your soul." He gestured to the confessional. "You have forgotten something important, and heaven refuses to forget." Her throat tightened. Is this about the gravestone? He smiled sadly. It is about what you buried long before that stone was carved. He placed a hand on his chest. What you locked here? A memory tried to surface, sharp, painful, but vanished like smoke when she reached for it. She shook her head. I don't know what you mean. You will. He motioned again. Confession will help you remember who you are, before the world forgets entirely. Fear clashed with a strange sense of emotional healing, like the promise of relief for a wound she didn't know she carried. She stepped forward. The wooden booth loomed like a portal to a past erased. She touched the curtain, and the church bells began to ring. The priest whispered, Day 1 is ending. Every choice matters now. She inhaled sharply, realizing the truth like an icy revelation. The countdown wasn't simply about her dying. It was about her disappearing. 1 day already gone. 6 days left to remain alive enough to be remembered. The sound of the bells crept beneath her skin like a warning wrapped in ritual. Each toll felt personal, as if marking the seconds left before something irreversible eclipsed her existence. She hesitated before the confessional. The curtain swayed slightly, though her hands shook inches away. When she finally stepped inside, the wooden bench creaked beneath her. Darkness surrounded her like a memory not yet uncovered. The lattice window between her and the priest cast geometric shadows over her face, like bars of a cell she didn't know she'd been living in. You may begin, his voice murmured. No formulaic blessing, no sign of the cross, just permission or an order. She stared down at her hands, fingers interlaced too tight. I don't know what I'm supposed to confess. Her voice sounded unfamiliar, thinner, like part of her had already vanished. He remained still, silent, patient, which somehow terrified her more. People aren't forgetting you, he finally said. They are remembering you less. She frowned. The distinction felt surgical. Memory fades when the soul detaches before its time. You started leaving long ago. Her heart pounded. What does that mean? You broke a covenant, he said. Not with people, with heaven. She shook her head. I'm not religious. You used to be. His certainty sank into her bones. He knew more about her than she did. What covenant? She pressed. You asked for something, he whispered, and heaven gave it to you, but you took that gift and buried it. His breath faltered, as though the truth pained him. You must unearth it, or the ground will claim you as punishment for forgetting what was sacred. Her lungs burned. I don't remember asking for anything. He leaned closer until his breath cooled her ear through the screen. Day 1 chooses denial. Day 2 demands acknowledgement. And then the booth door slammed open. She jolted, stumbling into the aisle. When she turned, the priest was gone. No sound of footsteps, no sign he had ever stood there. The entire church felt vacant. Even the candles extinguished themselves in a breath of cold air. She rushed out, heart sprinting faster than her feet, the church doors clapping shut behind her like judgment. Outside, snowflakes drifted lazily from a sky too dark for morning. She grabbed her coat tighter. The world looked slightly blurrier, like a camera failing to focus. A bus drove past, and every passenger stared forward blankly. None of them blinked. None of them moved their lips. They looked like still photographs. Lives paused while hers continued toward an ending. She tried to call her mother, straight to voicemail. At least her best friend Maya would answer. They had been inseparable since childhood. If anyone could ground her in reality, it was Maya. Maya, I need to talk. Something is... Who is this? Her friend's voice, not a joke, not curiosity, genuine confusion. It's me. Her throat tightened. It's... A long pause. Sorry, wrong number. The line dropped. She stared at her phone, pulse roaring in her ears. Her identity wasn't just fading in documents or strangers' minds. It was disappearing from the memory of the one person who promised to never forget her. Panic squeezed her chest. She walked fast, with no destination. Her reflection in every shop window seemed paler, edges less defined. She whispered her own name like a prayer, terrified that silence might follow. She needed proof she existed, something that couldn't forget. The library. Books don't forget. She rushed inside, scanning the shelves, brimming with stories that endured centuries. She checked the public record archives. Typing her name into the database felt like a desperate test of reality. The screen loaded. Error. No record found. Her birth certificate, her school records, her tax filings, all dissolved into nothing. She whispered, "What am I losing?" A librarian walked by. Their eyes slid across her, unfocused. "Then at least she saw you," a voice whispered from behind. She turned. A young boy stood near the shelves. Dark curls, white sweater, barefoot, in winter. His eyes were too aware, too old, like he had learned truths no child should learn. He tilted his head. "You're fading fast." Her knees nearly buckled. "How do you know me?" "You're on the list," he answered, as if it was obvious. "What list?" He took her hand, cold, small fingers gripping with surprising strength, and led her toward the history section. On a top shelf, he pulled out an enormous leather-bound book. The Book of the Gone Dust, spiraled like spirits rising from binding. He placed the book on a table and opened to a page already marked. Her name, in ink that moved like it was alive. Decay swallowing the letters. The boy looked up. "This is where people go when heaven stops waiting." She swallowed hard. "Why is this happening to me?" "You made a promise," he said. "A promise to someone you loved, a prayer you buried, a purpose you abandoned." His gaze pierced like a confession. Now heaven wants its answer. Her breath trembled. "I can fix this. I can make it right." He smiled with tragic relief. "That's why you still have days." He tapped the page. "But look how much of the ink is gone. Day 2 is almost over." She stared. Half her name was missing. Only one letter remained solid, the first. Her initial, the beginning of who she once was. "What's your name?" she asked, voice cracking. He considered, like searching memory. "I don't remember," he said gently. "That's why I'm barefoot." His eyes filled with something like envy. "But you do remember yours, which means you can still win." She whispered her name again. Her anchor, her proof of existence. The lights flickered. The ink thinned even more. Day 2 was slipping away. The boy stepped back as if listening to something distant. "He's coming." "Who?" she asked, but he was already fading, translucent skin, dust for footsteps. He spoke his final words before vanishing. "You still have 5 days to deserve being remembered." The book snapped shut with a thunderclap of air. She was alone again, more alone than anyone could be. She pressed a hand to her heartbeat, as if it might stop at any moment. She swallowed a sob, then she raised her head. If heaven wanted her back, it would have to fight for her. Because she would search for the promise she forgot, for the person she once was, before the world finished unwriting her. She walked home with the heavy book still echoing in her mind. The Book of the Gone. The boy's disappearing footsteps haunted the edges of her awareness. Her breath fogged in front of her like a reminder that she was still alive. But barely. The air felt thin, as if the world wasn't convinced she deserved another full inhale. Day 3 had begun, and she already felt borrowed from a future she might not reach. Her apartment door stuck before opening, like the building hesitated to let her inside. The lights flickered as she stepped in, illuminating a space she suddenly didn't recognize. The photos on the wall, vacations, birthdays, moments she swore were hers, were blank. Just frames with pale squares, like memories erased with a careless hand. She approached a frame that once held her favorite picture with Maya. Her fingers brushed the empty glass. The cold stung like betrayal. Her phone buzzed, a message from Maya. "Please stop contacting me." No punctuation, no emotion. Just distance where sisterhood once lived. The silence in the room thickened as she lowered the phone. She tried to ground herself in purpose, in prosperity of the soul, words she once used when journaling for emotional clarity. But even journaling betrayed her now. Every journal entry of her past year, every dream, every fear, was gone. As if she had never cared about tomorrow. She sat on the edge of her bed, heartbeat frantic. "I need to understand what I asked for," she whispered. "What did I give up?" The wind outside moaned like someone grieving. Then her phone rang. Not Maya, not a number. Unknown caller. Again. She answered, breath, slow, measured, familiar. "Daughter," the priest's calm voice murmured, "Day 3 is not a gift. It is an extension." She swallowed. "Why me?" "You begged heaven for freedom from pain," he said gently, "and heaven granted you a clean slate." She frowned. "When?" "When she died." Her pulse shattered into panic. "Who?" He didn't answer. "You erased your purpose," he continued. "Purpose is the thread that ties a soul to the world." She clenched her teeth. "I would never wish to disappear." "You did not understand the price," the priest whispered. The line went silent. The call ended. She stared at the phone screen. 4 days left her lungs locked. Heaven's countdown was automated, unavoidable, impersonal. She ran to the bathroom to splash cold water on her face. The mirror fogged instantly, from tears, from fear. She wiped the condensation and stepped back. Her reflection wasn't her. The hair was slightly shorter, her eyes duller. A life with less history, like she was already a simplified version of herself. She staggered backward. No, no, no! A knock at the door cut her panic short. She grabbed a knife before opening, just in case the world had more to steal. A delivery man stood there with a brown envelope. No logo, no name. "Sign here," he said without looking at her. "I didn't order anything. It's prepaid." His voice was hollow, like reciting memorized lines. Her hand shook as she signed. He left immediately, practically fleeing down the hall. Inside, a single photograph. A hospital room, her sitting on a bed, holding someone's hand. The person's face was blurred, too blurred, like the ink refused to commit their existence. But she saw a bracelet on that wrist, a charm shaped like a dove, hope, faith, healing. The same charm she found in her drawer months ago and didn't remember buying. She stared at the picture harder. She remembered a girl, a laugh like bells, the smell of cotton candy, small hands clinging to hers in thunderstorms. A voice whispered from the walls, "You asked heaven to take her pain away instead." She dropped the photograph. Her knees hit the floor. The priest's voice echoed in memory. "You asked for something, and heaven gave it to you." Her mind reeled, her forgotten prayer returning like a tidal wave. "Take her pain. Give it to me. Please, just let her live." She had saved a life and paid with her identity. A sob tore through her. She wiped her face. "No," she choked out. "There has to be another way." Footsteps approached the open apartment door. She looked up. The boy from the library stood there, barefoot, snow melting around his toes. "They're starting to forget your voice," he said. Her mouth went dry. "Who are you?" "I'm what's left when someone is forgotten," he answered, "but I'm here because I believe you can remember enough to survive." He held out a small silver chain, the dove charm. "You gave this to her," he said. Her heart twisted. "Who was she?" she whispered. He didn't answer. "You started fading when you stopped visiting her grave." The air froze around her. Memories struck like divine lightning, the cemetery, the lilies she carried. Not for a stranger, not for a random grave, but for the child she once saved, and then abandoned in fear of reliving the pain. The boy looked toward the window as snow thickened outside. "Heaven doesn't want to erase you." He turned back to her. "Heaven wants you to remember why you chose to stay alive." Thunder cracked, a sound with no storm. Her phone lit again. 3 days left. Midnight approaches. The boy's outline flickered like a candle fighting wind. "Go back," he urged. "Her name waits where flowers wilt." "Who?" "Your daughter," he whispered. The world went silent. Her heart shattered into truth and terror. She had a daughter. She had loved her. She had sacrificed herself for her. And then she forgot her. The boy stepped backward into the dark hallway. "You traded pain for emptiness," he said. "Now you must choose which one you survive." His final words echoed as he vanished once more. "Tomorrow is day 4. Heaven grows impatient." She held the dove charm in a trembling fist. Tears streamed down her face like confession given form. "Forgive me," she whispered, "to God, to a memory, to a child's name she no longer knew." For the first time since she found the gravestone, she felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not confusion, but the beginning of purpose, because she understood now. To keep her life, she had to reclaim her love. She didn't sleep, couldn't. Every time her eyes closed, she saw the photograph again, herself in that hospital bed, holding a tiny hand that the world had decided to erase. She stared at the dove charm, resting in her palm through the night, desperate for emotional clarity, begging any memory to come back. But the memories arrived in fragments, half-formed, trembling inside her mind. A melody. Soft laughter, a promise whispered beneath fluorescent hospital lights. "You won't be alone. I'll stay. I'll always stay." But she hadn't stayed. She had run from grief, run from guilt, run from a life too painful to remember. The first sign of morning was not sunlight. It was the sound of a single chime, like a bell struck far underwater. She felt the vibration more than she heard it. Her phone lit on the nightstand. Day 4. 72 hours left. 3 days until the grave's date. 3 days until she would disappear from every heart, every record, every prayer, forever. She rose without washing her face. Tears made that unnecessary. She grabbed her coat and the charm and ran outside, guided by instinct or divine timing. Snow fell faster, swirling like ash from invisible fires. The streets were emptier than they should be. Doors locked, windows shuttered, as if the world knew something sacred was underway. She reached the cemetery gate, locked, chained. But the wind pushed, the chains loosened. The gate opened, purpose, transformation. These words spilled through her thoughts, anchoring her to a truth she had forgotten to honor. She followed the path without needing to remember the way. Her feet knew. Her soul knew. Every step felt like she was walking deeper into a memory God refused to let her abandon. There it was, the gravestone, her gravestone, and beneath it, a much smaller stone, one she hadn't seen before. She knelt, breath freezing in the air, her vision clouded with tears as she brushed snow away from engraved letters she prayed she still deserved to read. A name, short, beautiful. A name she once whispered every night. Elena, her daughter. Her entire body trembled as the truth crashed over her like a wave of holy fire. She remembered the beeping machines, the doctors shaking their heads, the nurses praying silently along the walls. She is too weak. She won't survive the night. And then she, broken by fear, fell to her knees beside her baby girl. "Please, God, don't take her. Take me instead. Erase me if you must. Just don't erase her. Her love was a covenant, and heaven accepted. She collapsed into the snow, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding her daughter again. Her chest ached with a grief loud enough to break creation. A hand touched her shoulder. The priest. He stood above her, cassock barely stirring, though wind whipped fiercely around him. His eyes were gentler now, no urgency, only sorrow. "You asked heaven to carry her pain," he said, "and heaven did." She looked up at him through tears. "Then why did she die?" "She didn't," he replied. "You forgot to pick her up." Her heart stopped. She stared at him, breath stolen by the horror of possibility. "Elena is alive," he continued. "A new family adopted her, loved her, raised her well. She is safe. She is happy. She has purpose." The wind stilled. The world waited. "She's alive?" The word broke out of her like a prayer reborn. "Yes." He knelt beside her. "But heaven heard your prayer too clearly." "What do I have to do?" she begged. "Tell me how to fix this. I'll do anything." He placed the dove charm against her palm and curled her fingers around it. "You must show heaven that you wish to live again. You must show the world why you deserve to stay." Her voice cracked. "How?" He stood. "By remembering everything." A whisper rose behind them. Footsteps. Small ones. She turned. The barefoot boy. Snow not melting beneath his feet this time. Eyes bright with recognition. "She remembers me," he told the priest. The priest nodded. "Memory gives life. You are no longer a ghost of yourself." The boy reached out his hand as though offering to guide her deeper into revelation. But something shifted in the air, like the cemetery inhaled sharply. The bells from the church tower began to ring. Not 1, not 7, but 12. Midday. The hour of judgment. Her phone buzzed again. 2 days left. Day 4. Ending. Her voice trembled. "It can't be ending already. I just remembered her name." The priest's eyes were full of both warning and hope. "Remembering a name is only the beginning," he said. "You must remember love." A gust of wind separated them, forceful, holy, relentless. Snow exploded upward like wings of a buried angel waking. The boy's voice cut through the storm. "Time is no longer passing by minutes for you. It passes by decisions." The priest raised his hand, drawing a cross in the air that glowed briefly like fire beneath frost. "You must find Eleanor," he commanded, "before day 7, before the world forgets you completely." Her heart swelled with a mixture of agony and purpose. "Where is she?" Her voice became a plea heaven couldn't ignore. The priest opened his mouth to answer. But every candle in the cemetery extinguished at once. A voice she did not recognize whispered through the wind. "She will not be found." Shadows rushed across the snow, burying every footprint but hers. The priest vanished. The boy dissolved into swirling frost. She stood, alone again, clutching the dove charm. Her breath came sharp, her tears fell hot. But there was fire in her chest now. Divine fire, mother's fire. She looked at her daughter's stone, at her own, at the world trying to bury her before she finished her story. "No," she whispered. Stronger. "No." Louder, with purpose forged in grief and hope. "I will not die forgotten." Day 4 was ending, but she was just beginning. She would find Elena, even if heaven stood in her way. Snow lashed against her face as she pushed out of the cemetery gate, breath burning in her lungs. The dove charm seemed to pulse with warmth in her fist, a heartbeat reminding her that purpose still lived inside her, hidden, wounded, but alive. Every step away from the graves felt like she was defying a fate carved in stone. She needed answers. She needed someone who remembered her daughter existed. She approached a bus stop, but the vehicle that arrived was wrong. The windows were fogged on the inside, silhouettes moving like shadows underwater. When she stepped closer, all the passengers turned their heads in unison, faces blank, eyes hollow. No one blinked, no one breathed. The driver stared forward, frozen mid-expression. The world paused. Only she moved, her heart clenched. Please, I just need to find her. The bus doors wouldn't open, not with force, not with pleading. Then she heard a whisper behind her. They can't help you. They don't remember joy. She turned. The barefoot boy again. Snow didn't dare cling to him now. Flakes curved around his body as if holiness refused to touch ground. Where is Elena? She begged. He didn't answer, not directly. Years ago, he said softly, you signed papers without reading them. You believed you were saving her. His eyes glimmered with sorrow. But adoption works two ways. It can save a life or hide one. A chill crawled across her spine. Is she in danger? She is alive, he repeated, but heaven is not the only force watching her. Before she could demand more, a car horn blared. Reality surged back, bus roaring, passengers moving again, snow falling like gravity had restarted. The boy was gone. She boarded the bus anyway. It was moving. It was real enough. She sat in the back, fingers trembling as she unlocked her phone. The priest's voice echoed, "Find her before day 7. She searched Eleanor adoption records. Error. She searched Children's Hospital coma recovery 12 years ago. Error. Every query returned nothing, like the truth defied technology. She closed her eyes, forcing herself to breathe. Emotional clarity, transformation. These were words she once clung to while healing from lesser wounds. A covenant with heaven is never erased, only forgotten. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. No text, just a location pin. St. Gabriel's Orphanage, 4.8 miles away. Her pulse surged. Divine timing was no coincidence. She pulled the bus cord and stepped into the storm, walking quickly until the orphanage came into view. An old brick structure with windows glowing soft amber. The snow muffled every sound, making the building feel like an island separated from the living. She reached the entrance and knocked. Hard. A nun opened the door. Her habit was perfectly pressed, her expression unreadable. "Can I help you, child?" "I'm looking for someone," she said, voice breaking. "A girl. Elena." The nun blinked. Something flickered in her expression, a ripple of recognition quickly smothered. "We have no child by that name." "You're lying," she whispered before she could stop herself. The nun's jaw tightened. "Please leave." The door began to close. "Please!" She stepped forward, blocking it with her palm. "I know she was here. I'm her mother." The nun hesitated. A long silence stretched between them, as if the world refused to move forward until this moment mattered. "Follow me," the nun finally murmured. She led her down a hallway, filled with faint echoes of laughter and footsteps above, children living a life full of prosperity and purpose she had forgotten how to claim. The nun stopped outside a small office. "We keep outdated records in here. If she was ever here, maybe we'll find something." Inside, the lights flickered. Papers rustled as though disturbed by unseen hands. The nun pulled a file from the bottom drawer and placed it on the desk. A birth certificate. Her daughter's, Elena Grace. A photo, taken maybe age 7, showed a bright-eyed girl with a shy smile and hair curled like sunlight playing. Tears blurred her vision. "That's her," she whispered, tracing the photo. "She was adopted," the nun said. "Yes, I know." "No," the nun corrected, voice trembling. "She was adopted twice." Her breath failed. "Her first adoptive parents returned her 2 years later," the nun whispered, "claimed they no longer recognized her." The same disappearance, the same fading, not just her. Her daughter too. She grabbed the edge of the desk to stay upright. "Where is she now?" The nun hesitated. She lives in the old Renshaw estate, by the woods, but... The lights cut out. Darkness swallowed the room. The air turned heavy, like the walls held their breath. A second voice spoke, not the nun, not the boy, not the priest. "You are early. She is not ready for you yet." The voice slithered from every shadow. She stumbled backward, reaching for the doorknob. The nun gasped beside her. A cross fell from the wall, face down. Darkness surged like smoke alive. Something rushed past her ear, ice cold, furious. The nun screamed, then silence. The lights flickered back. The nun lay unconscious on the floor and scratched across the desk, carved deep into wood. She belongs to forgetting now. Her heartbeat stumbled. No, she belongs to me. Her phone buzzed. Day 5. Begins. 48 hours left outside. The wind howled like a warning. She clutched the file against her chest. She would find the estate, she would find her daughter, and whoever wanted Elena forgotten would learn what a mother remembers, even when heaven forgets. The road to the Renshaw estate wound through trees that leaned in like eavesdropping witnesses. Snow clung to the branches, weighing them down, but every so often a gust of wind shook it loose in soft avalanches, like the sky was erasing the landscape in front of her, daring her to keep going. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel, the file about Elena open on the passenger seat, the dove charm swinging from the rearview mirror with each turn. Her phone lit up on the console. Day 6. 24 hours left. Time was no longer passing in hours. It felt like it moved with every choice. Every mile closer to Elena stripped something away. Fear, denial, the illusion that she had ever truly been powerless. A different kind of clarity settled in her chest. Not the kind that comes from logic, but the kind born of love. A ruthless, unwavering purpose that refused to let her surrender. The estate emerged from the fog like a memory she'd never lived. Tall, dark, and strangely silent. No cars, no lights in the windows, just a house that seemed to breathe slowly, as though dreaming. She stepped out of the car, snow crunching under her boots, the air sharp in her lungs. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the silence was thicker. Furniture draped in sheets, dust floating in the air like slow-moving stars. This didn't look like a place where a girl lived. It looked abandoned. She called out, voice cracking. "Elena!" Floorboards whispered under her weight. A picture frame sat face down on the hallway table. She picked it up and brushed off the dust. A family, 2 adults and a girl in the middle. The girl's face was smudged, faded, as if the ink refused to hold her. But the outline, the posture, the tilt of her head, that was hers. Elena. A breath stirred the air behind her. She hasn't been here in a long time. She spun. A man stood at the foot of the staircase, mid-40s, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit. Eyes as tired as a confession, said too late. He looked at her like he'd been expecting this visit and dreading it at the same time. "Who are you?" she demanded. He exhaled. "I'm the one who signed her away. Twice." Her heart lurched. "You adopted her." "We tried," he said, voice heavy. "She was good. So good it hurt to look at her. But strange things kept happening, records disappearing, photos fading, people forgetting we even had a daughter. We thought we were losing our minds." He walked past her, touching the back of a dusty chair. "One morning, my wife woke up and didn't remember her at all. Not her birthday, not her voice. Nothing. And his jaw tightened. "I remembered everything. And I couldn't stand being the only one who did." Her throat burned. "So you gave her back." "She vanished before we could," he said quietly. "The last time I saw her, she was standing in that doorway, holding a small silver dove and asking if she'd done something wrong." Her legs nearly gave out. "Where is she now?" she asked. He shook his head slowly. I don't know. After she left, the world rearranged itself. Sometimes I think I dreamed her. You didn't, she whispered. She's mine. I prayed for her. I traded my life so she could have one. His eyes flicked to her, recognition dawning like sudden sunrise. You're the birth mother, he said. She nodded, tears spilling. Heaven took me seriously. It started erasing me. But it touched her too. He swallowed, as if the words were glass. You're not the only one heaven bargains with, you know. The room chilled. Shadows thickened in the corners. A voice she'd heard in the orphanage whispered from the ceiling, floor, walls, everywhere at once. She belongs to forgetting now. The lamps flickered. The air turned viscous. The man fell to his knees, clutching his head, eyes wide with terror. She held the dove charm out like a weapon. No, she said, voice low and shaking but resolute. She belongs to love, and love doesn't forget. The shadows gathered at the top of the staircase, forming a shape, not quite human, not quite smoke. A hollow, echoing presence that carried the weight of every abandoned promise, every broken vow, every child no one remembered. It seeped down the stairs like spilled ink. You asked to erase your pain, the thing murmured. We simply obeyed. Your soul did not want a life tied to grief, so we offered you peace. This isn't peace, she snapped, hand trembling around the charm. This is emptiness. This is spiritual poverty. The shape shifted, restless. Pain or emptiness. Those are the only choices mortals ever believe in. She stepped forward, heart pounding, but some strange inner peace steadied her feet. Then hear a new prayer, she said. Write this one down properly. She took a breath that felt like it reached every forgotten corner of her own heart. I choose both. The house groaned around them. I choose to live with pain, she continued, to live with memory, to live with the wound and the healing. I choose transformation over erasure. I choose to remember every moment I failed her, and every moment I tried. The shadows recoiled like something burned them. You would accept a life of suffering, they hissed. No, she said, I would accept a life of truth. There's a difference. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't look at it. If she's being pulled into your darkness too, she added, then I'm taking her back. You don't get to keep her. The stairway shuddered. The world dimmed. Then from the hallway behind her a small voice spoke. Mom? She turned. There, standing just inside the doorway, snowflakes clinging to her hair, eyes bright and familiar in a way no logic could argue with. A girl, 16 maybe, dove charm missing from her neck, as if it had been waiting to reunite with its other half. Elena, every part of her ached. She didn't run to her, she didn't reach out. Not yet. This felt too sacred to rush. You remember me? She whispered. Elena's brow furrowed. I don't know how I got here, she said softly. I was at a bus stop and then I wasn't, but when I saw this house, I felt pulled. And when I saw you, her voice cracked. It felt like I'd been waiting my whole life to meet you again. The shadow hissed, swirling around the perimeter of the room like a storm with no sky. She is ours, it snarled. She was marked by forgetting long before you came back. Eleanor flinched at the voice. What is that? Everything we refused to feel, her mother said. Every time we chose numbness over healing. She finally reached out, hand open, palm up, not grabbing, not demanding, just an invitation, a bridge. Elena, she said, name trembling out of her with reverence, you don't owe me your life. I gave it to you freely, but I am asking, will you walk the rest of it with me, even if it hurts? Tears welled in the girl's eyes. Will you stay, even if I'm difficult, even if I break sometimes? Yes, she said. That's what love is. Not erasing the cracks, but holding them. Their hands met. Warmth surged through the room like sunlight breaking through stained glass. The house shook, dust raining from the ceiling. The shadow screamed, high, shrill, furious, as if something had reached inside it and pulled out its core. "Purpose rewrites what fear erased," a calmer voice said. The priest stood in the doorway now, cassock fluttering in a wind that no one else felt. The barefoot boy appeared beside him, smiling through eyes that finally looked like they belonged to a child, not a ghost. "This is what heaven wanted," the priest said softly. "Not your disappearance, your decision, your alignment with what you once asked for." Her phone buzzed again. She glanced down. The countdown was gone. In its place, a single line glowed on the screen. "You chose to remember." "That is enough." The shadow shrank, folding in on itself like burned paper, until nothing remained but a faint chill and a whisper. "Some people beg to forget. You were foolish enough to beg to feel. You will regret this." "Maybe," she said, "but I'll remember it. And that makes it mine." Silence fell, but this time it was gentle, a silence that felt like exhale after a long-held breath. Elena leaned into her, head against her shoulder, as if she'd always belonged there. "Do I get to know everything?" Elena asked quietly. "Who you were, who I was, why we lost each other?" "Not in one day," she answered, brushing hair from her forehead. "But I promise you this. Nothing will be hidden, and nothing will be erased again. We'll journal it, speak it, cry it, heal it, together." The boy laughed softly. "She won," he told the priest. The priest smiled. "She didn't win against heaven," he corrected. "She finally agreed with it." He turned to her, eyes kind. "You are not on the Book of the Gone anymore," he said. "Neither is she." "Then where are we?" she asked. He nodded toward her chest. "Written where it matters." The world outside the estate seemed to breathe again. Distant traffic, a bird somewhere in the trees. Life, imperfect and loud and real. Later, as they stepped out into the snow, Elena squeezed her hand. "This is going to be hard, isn't it?" "Yes," she said. "Real healing always is." "But we're really here?" Elena asked. "We're not fading." She looked at their joined hands, at the footprints marking their path back to the car, at the sky slowly clearing. "No," she said, a quiet conviction settling into spiritual alignment inside her. "We're not fading. We're finally appearing. And somewhere beyond gravestones and forgotten records, beyond fear and numbness, beyond every shadow that ever promised to make things easier by making them empty, a single sentence echoed like a prayer finished at last. Heaven never forgets what love writes in the dark.